So it looks like Donald Trump will send us off a fiscal cliff this year. You can see the headline from the Wall Street Journal, why the federal deficit is projected to surge in 5 charts. U.S. debt will be more than 100% of U.S. GDP by the later this year. That's coming from the CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office. Basically, we all have more debt than the size of the U.S. economy. That is the USA. It also says by 2036, the CBO is projecting a debt of 56 trillion. Again, we have Trump's deficit spending is projected to go up, and he also wants to start a war with Iran today. That was the news. Let me show you the chart here. It says the CBO projects that the annual U.S. budget deficit will top 3 trillion by the fiscal year 2036. The deficit was briefly that high when the federal government spent heavily during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so effectively, we're going back to that kind of economy. You put it together with the deficit spending, the tax cuts that Trump is, instituting, essentially tax cuts for Elon Musk, et cetera. And just the numbers don't add up. And the Republicans are going to say, oh, no, everything's fine. We're going to grow the economy. Everything's fantastic. It says here the main drivers increase spending on entitlement programs as the nation's population ages and rising costs related to paying interest on the debt itself. And then what the Republicans say, Republicans have taken issue with the projections, saying the CBO's assumptions on economic growth are too low. They say, no, these numbers are not right, CBO. We're going to grow so awesome because we're investing in crypto and AI, and Trump's a fiscal and financial genius. Wow. They really do say this stuff. It's ridiculous. By fiscal year 2036, the deficit will hit 6.7% of GDP, up from 5.8 in 2025. So basically, again, we are spending more than we're taking in. The numbers don't add up, and it keeps getting worse each year. And then you're seeing the ballooning national debt. You also it is true, you also have demographic changes. Social Security and Medicare costs will drive mandatory spending to 15% of GDP by fiscal year 2036. Mounting debt will increase spending on net interest to nearly 5% of GDP. So just to pay the debt, that's going to be going up. Here's more. CBO projects 23 trillion deficit from 2026 to 2035, up around 1.4 trillion from its last projection. Tariff revenue will only partly offset the effects of the GDP's one big beautiful bill tax law. And Trump's trying to say, oh, we're taking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars from the tariffs, guys. We're so rich. Look how awesome it is. But I mean, the numbers don't really say that. And then you have the debt to GDP. Debt held by the public will surpass 100% GDP this year. Again, debt will be bigger than the size of the economy, and it's projected to exceed 120% by the fiscal year 2036. In the past, the USA would say, guys, we're fine. We just need to print more money. I mean, that always solves every problem. Just print more, right? Apparently, though, there's a shortage of money at the moment. Wealthy individuals who are in Blue Owl, they want their money, and Blue Owl says no. This was actually spooking the market today, and it is a pretty serious thing because when you want your money, you kind of want it, right? Private credit stocks slide after Blue Owl halts redemptions at fund. Okay, where's my money? I mean, obviously that would be the first question of anyone if you have money in this thing. Shares of the biggest private investment manager, so this is not a small one, on Wall Street tumbled on Thursday after Blue Owl permanently, they say, restricted investors from exiting a debt fund for retail investors, sending shivers through the industry. No, seriously, where's my money? Permanently restricted investors from exiting. And I think the thing they're saying is, well, yeah, you'll get your money eventually, but we need to, juggle some things around, sell some stuff off, and we'll give you some of it back. But, that certainly scares people over like, hey, what's going on over there? I thought I could get my money, right? And then suddenly all these kind of private funds are selling off. So there's just to really worry, because is this a warning sign that there's going to be a run where people, need the money for any number of reasons? Are you getting margin called on, whatever stupid crypto stuff you're in, or the bets you made on gold and silver? Who knows? Because things have been going up like crazy, and then things crashed like crazy. When you also then talk about wealthier individuals, but this isn't even like the crazy wealthy, just we'll say wealthier individuals. Walmart saying more wealthy people are heading to Walmart, basically. K-shaped economy hits Walmart as high-income shoppers are increasingly driving sales, right? And this is the quote from Walmart. You can hear it from them. The majority of share gains came from households making more than $100,000. That's from Walmart, okay? For households earning below $50,000, we continue to see wallets are stretched. And in some cases, people are managing spending paycheck to paycheck. You always want to pay attention to what Walmart says. I mean, they can see the economy, they can see the consumers come through the door. Trump always tells you you're winning, but I mean, Walmart's like the only people who are shopping is like we're getting more higher income people in through the doors. It aligns with patterns experts are calling K-shaped economy, which you talk about several times in the channel, right? The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. You could talk about T-shaped, the rich stay rich, the poor drop off a cliff, basically. And then you have the economy doing what it's doing, and it's really concerning all the way around when like suddenly everyone's struggling, as especially with the private credit thing. The wealthy benefit from stock market gains and higher wage growth are driving an outsized share of consumer spending. But that, if the market tanks, that won't last forever. And then this is also from Walmart. They say, Walmart, which has a reputation for discounts, right, supposed to be a low-cost store, is traditionally seen as a bellwether for the U.S. economy and consumer confidence. On Thursday, executives pointed to a so-called hiring recession, so there's no jobs. This is from Walmart, they're saying that. Lower consumer sentiment, so people just don't feel confident about the future, their jobs, right? They don't necessarily want to spend. And student loan delinquencies as reasons to be cautious about the future, again, coming from Walmart. Also, while you check in, because you have to put this all in the big picture together, and you look at what the government is up to, they're thinking, hey, let's get private jets for Kristi Noem and our people. No expense has been spared, they say. Inside a luxury jet DHS wants to buy for deportation. So remember, she's having an affair, and I guess that's not necessarily news. She's having an affair. That's what she's been doing for years. But the thing is, like, do they really need to put this basically, luxury bed and like that appears to be a massage chair? Maybe not a massage chair, but you can see like a chair there. I can see there's controls to recline it. We'll say a reclinable chair. This is on like their jet flying around. So then they can do their affair on the plane, I guess, is the plan. And they got this nice TV and stuff like that, so they can watch movies and such. I do need this, luxury kind of stuff for them. And then they got a kitchen and things. So, this is part of the MAGAverse. They usually will hide this. I doubt Fox News will talk about this kind of story. And see, DHS recently began leasing the Boeing 737 MAX 8, which DHS officials have described as a luxury jet. Okay. But now Immigration and Customs Enforcement is seeking approval from the OMB to purchase it for $70 million. Yeah. And essentially what they're doing with our money. Also, they want to go to war, which I told you guys before. And then the talk at the moment is, will Trump just do limited strikes? Again, all of this costs money. I just want to put in terms of money. It costs money to do this stuff. And then after that, are we then going to replace the regime and leadership in Iran, put our own people in there? Again, spend a bunch of money for that. We're also spending a bunch of money for whatever we're doing with Venezuela. And this is why your life doesn't get better in USA. I just wanted to just make it really clear, just so MAGA can understand this stuff. This is where all the money's going. You can see it. It's not hidden or anything. It's all public. And then you look at our markets, and they're just like acting out really weird. What makes this very weird market? And people are shuffling money around. It depends which industry that you're in. If you're buying the index funds, right, because it's collection of everything in the market, you haven't seen too big of shifts. But again, it depends whatever you've been in. So technology, financials, consumer discretionary, right, they're down a bit. Energy materials and staples are up, consumer staples. But part of what also is happening is if you call them out on their economy that doesn't really make any sense, they'll attack you, they meaning the White House. And actually more of the Fed is now pushing back on that. Hassett recently was saying, someone over at the Fed needs to be disciplined for the report. And the Fed put out a report, I think it was New York, if I remember correctly, saying basically you pay the tariffs. 90% of the tariffs are paid by the U.S. importers and consumers, which is just what it is. And they get really upset when you tell the truth. This is from the Financial Times. It says, top Fed official says White House is escalating its assault on the central bank. And you want an independent Fed. You want their policy to be set based on numbers and truth and reality, not just based on the whims of some crazy orange guy who just says, hey, we need to borrow to infinity, right? And that's why I showed you in the beginning where the federal deficit is pretty awful, and then you got your national debt also. This is from Kashkari, one of the Fed. He says, over the last year, we've seen multiple attempts to try to compromise the Fed's independence, including when the Department of Justice served a subpoena to the Board of Governors, and that's referring to Jerome Powell, over some building expenses. It's really about monetary policy, right? So Trump makes up some crap about, you're spending too much on the Fed building renovations, or he'll attack his opponents with nonsense attacks regarding, rather real estate fraud or whatever. This is what Trump does. And then it goes to court or jury and no one will, take it. The jury looks at stuff and is like, this is all nonsense or out of court. That's something that the Trump people do. And then when you look at the Trump economy, they keep pushing crypto and AI and all that stuff. And evidently, some of these companies are pushing it to their employees also. And I'll do a separate video on AI to go more in detail. But it says, Accenture tells senior staff to use AI tools or risk losing out on leadership promotion. So I guess you got to use AI if you want to get promoted at some companies now. Remember, the whole goal then is to reduce hiring, because we're not going to hire any junior people anymore. So we're destroying the pipeline. And then we're going to have, some people still stay at the company while we do layoffs, and then we'll give you an AI assistant. That's the plan. Obviously, it's unsustainable, and that's why you see sort of shifts in who's shopping at Walmart. And then also that's why you see basically the fiscal situation is no good in USA, as you already know. But I just want to show you that it's not just an individual situation, it's the macro. And then the only people that really benefit are Elon Musk. And then Elon Musk, like literally is tweeting out today, if you want to look at it, you can, but he's trying to make the claim that him and people that look like him are victims and everyone hates them and they're victims. And, Elon's supposedly suffering as the richest guy in the world, wants to be a trillionaire. It's like completely whacked out. And then they get, Elon convinces all the MAGA people, oh, you gotta follow me because you gotta feel sorry for billionaires and trillionaires and stuff like that. And it's how ridiculous our world is. And so that's why it's important just to have conversations, show you guys charts, what's going on with the economy and where the money is going or not going, is because you can't get your money back from that one fund. Was that Blue Owl? So I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Please be careful out there, and I'll catch you all in the next video.